everybody! Welcome to my second voiceover video in which I show you how I paint skin tones in watercolor. This video focuses on coloring the skin only. So if you want to see how I prepared the sketch for my paintings, trace them onto watercolor paper, and choose the color palette, you can have a look at my last video where I describe everything. In this first part of the video, I want to give you general tips on how to mix skin tones. It's very easy because all you really need is a yellow, red, and some blue to desaturate the colors. So from my yellows, I have some light ochre and some Indian yellow, just to try out the difference. From the reds, I have crimson and cadmium red. And then for some accents, I like to use recently for warmer English red, and for a little bit cooler tones, perylene violet. From blues, I have cerulean and ultramarine blue, and to create some darker skin tones, you can use burnt umber and even add some violet. And then for the shadows, I use most frequently a violet from Ecoline called pastel violet. It gives some nice shades to the skin tone. So let's get into some mixing. I'm preparing yellow ochre, diluting it in some water. And then I'm gonna do the same with my red. I take the crimson color. Pretty much when you mix some yellow and some red diluted with water, it's already making a skin tone, if you water it down enough. And then for the accents lately, I really like that color that is called English red. It's a little bit warmer. You can create effects of a tan. So I will also prepare it for my palette. Now the reason why we also add blue to mix skin tones is that they're like the opposite. And adding a little bit of blue into our mix will help to desaturate the color. Because otherwise, adding just red and yellow, it's a little bit too saturated. And then the burnt umber is very useful to mix darker skin tones. That's why it's always good to have burnt umber as well. To mix, I have a nice separate palette. It's ceramic. I really like using it. And then I start with mixing my yellow and my red. And what you get as a result is a very light skin tone. And as I was saying, if it's a little bit too bright, you can always add some blue to it and desaturate it. Here in this example, I added quite some water, and maybe you're not gonna see that well enough, but you get an effect of a really light skin tone. And in watercolor, you work with layers. So if one layer is not bright enough for you, not saturated enough for you, you can wait till it dries and you can add another one, and in this way build up on your layers. You can also add more red to the mix or more yellow. Depending which direction you want to go, you can experiment here. Start with the base, red and yellow and a little bit of blue, and then see how it goes. Add some yellow, then some red, have some scrap paper, and experiment. Have some fun. I also have some Indian yellow, so I really recommend you this exercise where you take whatever reds and yellows you have and you see how they behave. Maybe you get a little bit different hues. See how it goes. Remember that adding blue helps to desaturate the color. Quite recently I discovered that new color that is called perylene violet. It's a very nice violet. If you know me, if you follow me on Instagram, you know I like purples. I like purpley colors. You can try adding a little bit more yellow, like light ochre to any violet, and see what hues you get. It's a little bit towards violet, I admit, but they work very well for shading, for anywhere where you see some shadow. For example, around the eyes, around the nose, around the hairline, you can use that color there. And as always, you can add blue to desaturate a little bit and play around. Add some yellow, add some red. So before we had yellow and just some simple red, try also yellow with some purple that you have in your palette. Another color that I added to my palette is vermilion. I really like that color lately. It's a very, very bright red, kind of orangey. It adds some nice accents when you're painting portraits. You can use it, for example, to color the lips or to add some shading onto the eyes, some sort of makeup. You can also see that it creates a very nice color when you mix vermilion with violet. And the same, you can use it for shadows. For example, around the eyes. There are also shadows around the nose, underneath the lower lip, or underneath the face in general, on the throat. Now, if you would like to paint some darker skin tones, then I really recommend using burnt umber. You see it's a little bit deeper, a little bit chocolatey. I like to experiment here as well, adding a little bit more red, and if I wanted extra darker, or for the shadows on the darker skin tone, then I add some violet, or even gray if you have. I think the most popular gray for that sort of mixture is Payne's gray. Same, adding some blue to desaturate it a little bit. It's very good for the shadows in this case, especially when you add a bit of violet. So here I'm presenting you the colors that I use most frequently for some accents, like freckles or creating a tan. Especially for some tan and a warmer look, I like using English red. And for a little bit cooler look and shadows and some makeup, I like to use some purple. And to this section I would also add vermilion for makeup or for mixing it with some purple that you like for creating shadows and some accents. One way to create shadows is basically to layer again the colors that you pre-mixed, but for that purpose I have two favorite colors that I use quite frequently. The first one is pastel violet because I really like cool shades, especially violets and purples. And for a little bit warmer tones, a bit of a tan again, I use mahogany. Also from Jacquelin. It's a very pretty color. I also invite you to experiment on your scrap paper and use the shadows that you mixed to see how they look. You can also make it a little bit easier for yourself and buy ready-made mixes for skin tones. The ones that I like to use most are paints from Jacquelin, liquid watercolors, pink beige and apricot. Especially the pink beige, it's very good for the first layer of your watercolor painting. And recently I also bought a few colors by Magello. They were very good quality watercolors. And I bought this skin tone color called Jaune Brillant. French people in here, please correct me in the comments below. I really don't know how to pronounce it. And then watercolor is never really wasted because you can always re-wet it and reuse it. But while you do this exercise, I invite you to use all the leftovers, mix them around and put a little bit more color swatches there to see your little experiments in this color mixing. of part 2 on how I color my skin. In the next video to come, I will show you how to make skin extra pretty by refining the outlines, adding some tattoos, and giving it more dimension with colored pencils. I would be super happy if you subscribe to my channel and like my video to help me gain more visibility here on YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions in the comments below, and I'm open for any suggestions regarding new videos. I hope you learned here something new, and I'll see you in the next video or on Instagram. Bye bye!